We have some really awesome price action going on because Bitcoin has broken out of the downtrend line. The MACD on the daily has flipped bullish and the RSI on the daily is beginning to break resistance. All of these signals point to the idea that we are starting to get a bullish pivot back to the upside. All of this and more in today's video.
Yes. It's happening. E-sold. Pump it.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Kevin Svenson, and today we're going to be discussing the price of Bitcoin and looking at the altcoins a little bit as well. On Twitter for the past few days, we've been discussing the MACD crossover. Starting on August 16th, I was talking about the MACD crossover was looming. And on August 19th, I was posting it again when we got the confirmed cross up. And here we are. We're on the third day of a MACD cross up. And so right now we are sitting on yet another MACD cross up, and we have a resistance break. The next most important indicator that I see is the daily RSI. This is something else that you always need to be keeping an eye on because the daily RSI structure is a very telling sign. Whenever we break it, it usually incites major moves up. And so Bitcoin is looking for the next major push to the upside. Now, if we zoom in a little bit on this chart and just see where Bitcoin's price touched after we hit the low, bounced up, we tested the 618 fib extension from the high to the low. The 618 was the target. The next fib target above us is sitting at the 786. That is 65,500. That is the next fib target, and that could be creating an upward sloping channel if we do in fact reach that point where the price may end up settling up in this range before breaking out later. 786, once again, 65,500. There's also another argument you could make where Bitcoin has this pennant formation that we are breaking out of currently. If you take the height of that pennant, the widest point of the pennant, take that as your measured move on our breakout, that would send the price up to 69,700. That is the textbook measured move of this pennant formation. Now, I am not saying that this would happen immediately. Of course not. Likely the price would settle up in this range, go sideways, and make you wait a while before actually getting up there. It would take a long time, but that is the measured move technically of this pattern. But I would look for the safer target, the more realistic target, which is the next upside target, the 786 at 65,500, which could be putting us in this sideways rising channel. What are some things that are supporting the idea of a rebound, a recovery, possibly new all-time highs for Bitcoin? Well, the S&P 500 has defied all expectations. Remember the world was ending just a couple weeks ago down here? Well, now the S&P is sitting less than 1% away from the all-time high. A perfect recovery right back to the highs. And also, there's been discussion about the money supply, the global liquidity. And I have a few indicators that I created, one of them being the Global Liquidity Index candles. That is the name of the indicator that I publish on TradingView, which takes the Global Liquidity Index and gives it to you in candle format. And also, I released yesterday, actually, the M2 Global Liquidity Index candles on TradingView, free to use. So what we can see is that global liquidity is starting to tick up. We're getting lower highs here, but we're nearing a possible breakout. The money printers are returning. Interest rates are likely going to see cuts soon. Now, I want to bring you guys to this chart, which is the Bitcoin monthly chart. And this is showing that Bitcoin is perfectly on track right now. What we're seeing for Bitcoin here on the monthly is no different than any other cycle. You have the halving, and a few months later, we break out into new all-time highs. 2020, the halving, a few months later, we break out into new all-time highs. Bitcoin, the halving, we haven't actually broken out or trended into new all-time highs yet. We touched them, we didn't trend above them, which means we're actually perfectly on track with previous cycle timing. The halving, and a few months later, most likely begin breaking out into new all-time highs. Things are looking perfect right now for Bitcoin. Despite the volatility, we're doing good. Now, let's take a look at the altcoin market cap. The thing that people have had the most trouble with recently in recent times is the altcoin market. It's been very suppressed. Not much action, a lot of just lower lows. Feels like a bear market for the altcoins. For Bitcoin, it's clearly a bull market. For the altcoins, it's a different story. But once again, we've talked about this before, we are still sitting in the exact same setup as previous cycles. Currently, the altcoin market cap is sitting down here inside of this consolidation, which was the last step in the previous cycle before we broke the lower high of the previous cycle high zone. We're currently sitting right here at the end of this formation. And you can see I have a depiction of these green candles, the price breaking out. Just like the last cycle after the all-time high, 157 weeks later is when we broke that lower high. Currently, we are still many weeks away from hitting that same timing, which means we're on schedule, we're on track. As long as the total 3, the altcoin market cap, can break out of the lower high zone around November, well, that means that we're perfectly on track with the past cycle. So what people don't realize is that nothing is really different necessarily about this cycle. The narratives are different. The way the market's behaving is kind of different. But in terms of timing, in terms of like the performance, when we should be doing really well in this market, we're on track, we're on schedule. The altcoins are performing worse than usual at this time in the cycle, I should say. We had a bigger drawdown in this consolidation than we did in the past cycle, right? In the past cycle, there was a lot of Uniswap, DEXs were a new thing. There was a lot of volume for low caps. So that is the big difference between these two cycles. But things are starting to shape up to be a spitting image of the past cycle. Timing is good for the altcoins. The next few months should be very bullish. And also for Bitcoin, things are perfectly on track. Looking at the Bitcoin dominance chart, in theory, this is about when the altcoins would start to get a lot of action. We are meeting the multi-year resistance line. Bitcoin dominance on the monthly is now touching our multi-year resistance. So this is about when we would see altcoins take over the market. Now, this doesn't mean that Bitcoin's going to perform badly. Actually, alt season usually includes some of the biggest uptrends, pumps take place for Bitcoin during alt season. Why? How is that even possible? How does that even make sense? Well, alt season is simply a measure of interest for crypto as a whole. If people are throwing their money into low caps and altcoins, right, trying to speculate on the next big thing, that means interest is high and people are willing to take more risk, which means they're also risking on Bitcoin. Alt season takes place when Bitcoin breaks into and trends above its all-time high. That is historically true. So we are currently not trending above our all-time high, but once we do, that's when alt season really kicks off. That's how it's been in all the previous cycles. Don't just take my word for it. Let's look at Bitcoin here, the orange line you see on the screen. The all-time high was sitting here at 1,200 back at the start of 2017. And Bitcoin goes from 1,200 to 20,000 while Bitcoin dominance is crashing. Next cycle, 2020, Bitcoin breaks above 20,000, goes from 20,000 to 69,000. And while we're going up, Bitcoin dominance is crashing. And the same thing would be taking place in this cycle. Bitcoin breaks the all-time high, begins trending up to wherever it's going to trend up towards. Bitcoin dominance is crashing. Right? It's just interest levels are high when alt season takes place, and it's good for everybody. Everybody's making money in those types of environments. And once again, in theory, we are now sitting at the resistance waiting for alt season to kick off. Now, as I'm making this video, Bitcoin is continuing to push higher. We just hit new highs, right? We had a rejection here the other day. We just hit a higher high, so we're breaking resistance. And it does appear to me like we are looking to tag that 786 level at 65,500 and enter into another uptrend. So that's it for me today, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash the like, subscribe to this channel, sign up for a Kraken Pro, and I'll see you all in the next video.